This podcast contains explicit language.
Bafangu!
Houston, flight is go.
Myla, let's go. SPM. Safety contact.
From Assignment X, thesoniashow.com, and Amalgamated Storytelling, this is the Dorking Out Show, the podcast for people who love stories from movies, TV, books, podcasts, and everywhere else.
Welcome to episode 112 of Dorking Out. This is the summer movie preview edition. That is the episode of Dorking Out where we talk about the television we're most looking forward to in the winter of 2019.
We are super bad naming episodes.
That's right. With me today is my co-host, professional writer and creator of The Sonia Show, Sonia Mansfield.
Hey there.
Hey, you.
With me today is my co-host, Emmy Award-winning filmmaker and nerd author, Christopher Allen Smith. Are you a nerd author?
Well, you know what? There may or may not be a special announcement about that very topic on next week's show.
That's true.
That's a deep, deep tease. But Sonia, what are we talking about?
That was also my nickname in high school.
Oh, not me. Sonia, what are we talking about on today's episode?
We are going to share our most anticipated movies of the summer. I've been very excited for this episode since you told me this morning that that's what we were doing.
We were going to talk about the Netflix documentary Wild Country, because we both happened to watch it. It's a fantastic documentary. But then we realized, we being me, that Infinity War comes out this weekend, and
that kicks off the summer movie season. Kicks off the summer movie season, and we had not done our summer movie preview. So this is actually not the summer movie preview edition. This is the doing our homework at the last minute edition. Yes.
So.
Yay! By the way, yeah, Wild Country, super awesome. You guys, you should all watch it.
It is very good, and it is very. It's one of those things where I think I agree with both sides almost equally.
That is. Oh, see, now I'm like, oh, we should have done a whole episode on this because I also went through that. Yeah. Like the first couple of episodes, I was like, kind of with the I don't want to say cult because I don't know if it's really a cult, but I was like, I kind of agree with the cult on this one. Mm-hmm. And then at a certain point, it kind of flips, and I was like, oh. And then I also feel like kind of a dum-dum because all of this is happening in like the early 80s, and I felt like maybe I should have known about this, and I've never heard of this before.
It's interesting. I heard something about it back then.
I was just a kid, but yeah. I feel like I should have known something about this. But anyway. I
think I knew something about it. Actually, I found out that one of my... You know what? I guess we are going to do a little mini segment on Wild Country right now. Turns out that my ancestors lived in Antelope like 100 years ago. Like they were gone 50 years before this even started. Right. But yeah, that is some desolate country, and it is kind of an interesting debate about, and it kind of a very extreme case of debate about immigration.
Yeah,
and kind of like you know, we want to be an open and tolerant country. We want to have people be able to come and do whatever they want, but at a certain the question is kind of how fast are they going to come and change the culture that's already there? And how much are they the people that are coming, going to adapt to the culture that's already there?
Yeah. And there was also a lot of separation of church and state.
Right.
And, you know, but also like the idea of, well, what church? So there were a lot of people who were just kind of put off that what they were doing wasn't Christian.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know, and that seemed to kind of tip things. It was like, well, they're different. They're not Christian. We don't like that.
Right.
And then it was a real focus on like, I think they're doing like dirty sex stuff there. Right. And that's the thing that kind of pushes it to like, to make them take the steps that they take. And then things just get out of control. Well, really interesting. And I don't get a chance to do binge watching. Like I share a TV with my husband and my kid, and, so I don't get to sit down and watch like 6 hours of something.
Right.
And I was just watching this like every second.
Right.
I could watch it. Like anytime, like there was no one in this house, I was watching it in like 20-minute blocks, or just because I thought it was so interesting.
It is. And that's the thing. And I wish some, not to get all political or whatever, but I wish my friends on the left would pay attention to this kind of question, because, a lot of times when people come to this country and they have trouble, there's this kind of like, oh, well, America's being pedantic and America's being small-minded and they're rejecting the foreigners and this and that, which is definitely a thing. It is definitely a thing that definitely happens. But then there is a legitimate question of, if people are going to come to the American melting pot and if they're going to change the culture, how do we do that? Because I think one of the things that was interesting from this movie is I'm kind of like hey, let people live as they want to live, so let the Rajneeshis do whatever they're going to do.
Right.
But then within 2 years, enough of them come into the area to completely overturn the government. And if you're sitting, well, no, hold on.
Okay.
There was some pushback and stuff, but I can imagine if some email call out went to like all the alt-right people in America and they said, all right, over the next 3 years, we're all moving to San Francisco. We're all going to get there. We're all going to buy houses. We're all going to get there. We're going to engineer it.
They're all going to buy houses here?
Exactly.
Good luck.
That's right. We're all going to go there, and it's going to be a concerted effort to completely change the culture and the government of San Francisco within not within a generation or two, but within 3 or 4 years. That would, people that came to San Francisco to live, the San Francisco way and the openness and the freedom and the whatever, having it switch around like, lightning quick, if you're, I think it would be fair to say you are not a nativist and you are not small-minded if you would not be thrilled as a San Francisco about something like that.
Well, no, I wouldn't want that, obviously. But I also think this is a little different because they moved, like they set up this ranch kind of in the middle of nowhere. And it seemed to me, and I don't know everything, I only know what this documentary told me.
Right.
Is they were kind of minding their own business.
That's true. No,
and then the people in the neighboring town were like, we don't like them here. We want to know what they're doing over there. Right. And then when they find out what they're doing over there, they're like, well, we don't like it.
Well, that's true.
So then there was this kind of push to maybe make them leave. And that's when they were like, well, the hell with you. We're going to take over your government.
Well, that's true. There is something about that. And that is something that I think is kind of interesting because they did move there into the middle of nowhere to be away from everything.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they moved there in the middle of nowhere expressly to build a city by the sleepy little town. So it's kind of, and it's, so there definitely was some kind of small-minded, small-town nativist impulses. But at the same time, it's kind of like, oh, you guys bought this ranch and moved on this ranch and you're supposed to have this ranch. And, 2 years later, you're going to have this city and we're just supposed to sit here. And, it's kind of like you're not exactly being open. You're not exactly being straightforward with the fact you're building this. I live in Chico, California. And that's one of the things that's going on here is, every inch of farmland that gets bulldozed over to build, a new strip mall or something.
To build a new city for a cult.
Right, or build a new city for a cult. It's so that I think it's one of the great things about this documentary is that it's not. It takes a lot of the usual impulses that we have about who we agree with and who we don't, or at least me, and flips them on their head, but then also flips them again and again. So you can never. So by the end of it, it's very interesting.
Yes, so, and the main. Kind of one of the people they really focus on is this woman, Sheila. And I think she's fascinating. And, how she gets to be where she is, the decisions she makes, and where she ends up.
Right.
Really interests me, and kind of I have this like push-pull like feeling about her where I'm like, you're like, she's kind of a villain, and then you're like, well, she did that was cool,
right,
or she did this but it was for the wrong reason, or it was really interesting.
It's very
I
interesting.
don't want to spoil it for people.
The last thing that I would want to say is if you want to, there's a lot of discussions about, in the Me Too movement, and modern discussions of women in the workforce and equity and all that kind of stuff. If you want to see old school sexism, the way strong women were dealt with, watch the way that Sheila was dealt with by the people within the cult. It gets it's a very interesting portrait of essentially good cop, bad cop, where the like a CEO or like a leader of a company gets to be the good cop, and he has the chief executive officer, or the chief vice president, and she's the ball buster, and she's the one that makes the trains run on time. And then when the time comes, she's not so convenient for him anymore. Well, guess what?
Yeah,
all the stuff that this company's been doing, or this cult's been doing, that everybody happens to not like. Guess what? It was all her fault, not me.
I didn't know.
I didn't know, even though I'm the leader, even though I rule everything. So it's a very interesting thing. It's funny because between watching this on Netflix and watching LA Confidential on Netflix, it's kind of like everything you need to know about sexism and nativism and religious cults, and everything you need to know about Black Lives Matter is in these two movies. I mean, watching old school LA cop corruption is I don't know why more people don't talk about LA Confidential in that instance, which brings us to a subject totally disconnected from this mini topic. Yeah, speaking of LA Confidential and moral corruption, let's talk about summer movies 2018. We have 10 movies that we are very excited to see, and we are going to talk about them a little bit, starting with Sonia Mansfield.
Well, I think you should go first because your first pick is kind of the obvious.
Well, yeah, I guess. All right, we're gonna get this out of the road. This is the Avengers: Infinity War / Ant-Man and the Wasp Marvel.
I still haven't seen the first Ant-Man.
Marvel Cinematic Universe placeholder slot. I don't know. I really wonder how many years it's going to be before a summer movie preview or a winter movie preview or a fall movie preview is not going to have a Marvel movie in it for me.
Yes.
But yeah, this is, Avengers Infinity War is the culmination of 10 years of filmmaking. I am very excited for this movie. I'm trying to think what this is like. And this is almost like watching The Phantom Menace or waiting to watch The Phantom Menace, in that there's 15 years, 20 years of anticipation, thoughts, hopes, wonders, speculation, whatever, for this pop culture, thing that we're interested
It's slightly
in.
different though, because we've had like 2 or 3 Marvel movies a year.
It is.
Whereas before Phantom Menace, we didn't have any Star Wars movies since '83.
But for me at least, this is kind of like, all right, we've done all these things, we've had all these characters going their individual things. Now we are coming to the close of this 10 years of filmmaking. This is, kind of like the season finale or the series finale of this big Marvel thing. Because I think everything that Kevin Feige and the people that are working on Marvel movies from here on out have said, this changes everything. We are completing one story, with Avengers 4 that comes out next year. So the speculation is, A, people are going to die, but B, storylines more importantly, storylines are going to get wrapped up in these two movies. And and for me, seeing a cinematic, it's kind of like the last thing that the MCU has not done, which is finished a story, wrapped up a story. They've begun all these characters and all these different movies. They've interwoven them. They've created this legendary, Hollywood-changing cinematic universe. And this is something we don't get in comics a lot, and this is something we don't get in a lot, series a lot, is a real meaningful end where stories are tied up. We're getting them a lot more in television now than we used to, but a lot of times, they keep making sequels until one of them isn't good enough or doesn't make enough money, and then they just stop and threads.
Right, they keep making sequels until they, put Jason in outer space, or
exactly, or for anybody that was watching all the threads being laid down in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies that never got paid off, or in Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man movies that never got paid off, it could be very frustrating. Or I don't know if anyone is out there in this position, but the Mummy from last year, speaking of summer bombs,
right.
They laid down a million threads that were supposed to go in a million different directions, and we're not going to see where those go. To have an achievement like the Marvel Cinematic Universe actually come in for some kind of a landing, I just find very interesting and very exciting. And when you think about the ridiculous hype and promotion and the avalanche style building on itself that these movies have gone through to get to this point, I'm wondering if Avengers: Infinity War is going to be the biggest movie of all time. I don't know. It just seems like, because a lot of
it could be. I mean, anyone who's a fan of any one of those characters is going to want to see it.
Right. Well,
especially now with like Black Panther. I think Black Panther just past Titanic is like one of the top grossing movies of all time.
Actually, well, Black.
So Black Panther is in this movie, so you're going to have a huge amount of people who are just like, "Yay, Black Panther!" and they're going to go see it. And then, of course, you have like people who love Iron Man, people who love Captain America, and they're going to go.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think that's exactly what's going on. Yeah, that's it. So on the domestic grosses, according to Box Office Mojo, unadjusted for inflation, as anyone who has listened to this show knows, there is a What's the Biggest Movie of All Time video on the Dorking Out YouTube channel that addresses exactly this point. Mm-hmm. But thank God I did it in 2017 because I would have had to quickly revise it for 2018. So there's number 1, Force Awakens. Number 2, Avatar. Number 3, Black Panther. Black Panther has made $50 million more than The Avengers, which is the top grossing Marvel movie.
Okay.
Until Black Panther.
Right. But, so Titanic's not even like...
Titanic's number 4 now.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah, Titanic's 4.
And what's crazy is, if anyone remembers, Titanic really was a phenomenon.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't know anyone who didn't see Titanic and who didn't, have the soundtrack. Or I didn't have the soundtrack, but lots of people had the soundtrack.
I still have the soundtrack. That's right. I have it.
I mean, I would say that Black Panther is definitely like that, though. It is a movie that people still are talking about.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. And that's one thing that I've heard is because one of the things that's interesting looking at this now, and we're going to get to the rest of our other 9 movies, is top grossing until Black Panther. Top grossing Marvel movie was The Avengers. Second top grossing was Avengers: Age of Ultron, and then you have to go all the way down to, then Iron Man 3, then Guardians of the Galaxy 2. So there's, so when it comes, it does seem as though with all these different series, Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, all of those different fandoms, as different as they are, do come together and kind of pump up the numbers for the Avengers. And to have Black Panther come out for 3 months, 2 months, take off like this insane rocket that it is, and then have another essentially Black Panther starring movie come out this quickly to kind of take advantage of that buzz, plus all of the 10 years of hype and buildup, here. But having said all that, so that's the case for Infinity War being the biggest movie of all time. One of the things I'm noticing here, and I think this is very interesting, one of the things that Black Panther has in connection with Titanic is Titanic came out in December and then just kept making gobs of money December, January, February, because that was back at a time when there were not a lot of big movies that came out at the beginning of the year to knock a movie off its stride. Black Panther got lucky in that it came out and it was huge, and there was not some huge release in March. There was not any other huge release in February. So it was able to just sit at the box office and chew up money. A similar thing with Avatar. It came out in December, just chewed up money, well into that new year. Force Awakens. Now that I'm looking at this, I'm wondering, people talk all this stuff about big blockbusters coming out in the summer, but all of the biggest blockbusters, except until you go down to 5, Jurassic World, came out in December. If you really want to make your money, I think you need to come out in December. But so what I'm going to say is, Avengers is coming out at the beginning of this crowded summer movie season. So I'm wondering if it's going to be able to make it, because it's going to have so much insane competition,
right?
That I don't know if it's going to be able to do it. But that is our preview for Avengers Infinity War and our box office analysis for what it's worth, which is almost nothing. Sonia, what is your first?
I don't think we're going to talk that much about all the other movies.
God, I hope not.
I'm going to go I have put mine in order of release date, and I'm going to go in a totally different direction than your Marvel.
Than my fairly obvious Marvel pick.
I'm picking Tully, which is written by Diablo Cody and directed by Jason Reitman and stars Charlize Theron. These are Jason Reitman and Diablo Cody did Juno and Young Adult, 2 movies that I liked quite a bit. So I am interested in Tully. I guess I haven't watched the preview yet, so I've only read about it, but Charlize Theron plays a really busy, frazzled single mom, and a woman shows up at her doorstep to help her. And it's just, you would think it's a thriller, but it's not. And apparently she does good things.
That's right.
I don't want to see a lot about it, and I don't want to read a lot about it, because I find that I enjoy movies more when I don't know every little thing.
Yeah.
But I know that I really have enjoyed their movies in the past. I think they're very interesting with really good performances, and the stories don't always go the way I think they're going to go. So I'm quite interested in this one.
Right. It is 96 minutes. That's a short one. Look at that.
Look at that. I picked it and I didn't even know that I was going to love it just for that reason.
That's right.
Because I am always complaining that everything's too long.
That's right. So I got a question.
Yes.
My next movie is Incredibles 2.
Yes.
Which is, a
little indie movie.
A little indie movie called Incredibles 2. Here's the thing. Is the first Incredibles came out in 2004, I think. So this is 15 years in the making. 2006, 2007, 2010, 2011, 2012, I would have killed for an Incredibles 2. I love Incredibles. Might be one of my favorite. It might be my favorite Pixar movie, except for maybe the Toy Story trilogy. It is that it is storytelling right up my alley, which is fantastical, but also
it's no Bug's Life, but sure.
I think I feel that as a little bit of a dig at Bug's Life. You're being a little sarcastic about Bug's Life. Bug's Life is great. Anyway, point is,
I tease.
The point is,
it's no Cars 2.
That's right. So Incredibles is just it takes the fantastical and the humane and the relatable, and it puts it all together in this fantastically thrilling package. There is something about this movie that I just cannot get excited about. Like, it's on here because it would have been on any preview list of the last 10 years. And it's on this preview list, but I have to admit, I was looking for other movies this summer, some of which are on your list that I would have put on ahead of The Incredibles, that I'm not excited.
There's so many superhero things now. I think at the time, there wasn't that many superhero things, right?
Well,
Iron Man came out 10 years ago.
Right. So
this is 4 years before that.
I think that's part of it. But the thing with The Incredibles is they were both commenting on family life and, how we raise our kids and how we move through the world. And it was commenting on superheroes and superherodom itself, which you would think would be even more pertinent, more interesting, more connected now than then. You would think that they could have added more in, and maybe they are. I think one of the things that's making me balk a little bit at this movie is this is not really a spoiler to say this because they've said it in every interview for the last 15 years, and from the previews you can tell, this movie picks up 10 minutes after the last one ends.
Right.
I would have loved for a movie that jumps ahead in time, almost like a, Incredibles, almost as though 15 years had passed for the Incredibles. And they were like grandparent superheroes with grown-up kids superheroes with another something. I'm just not, I don't know. And it looked like, a lot of the ground that it looks like this one's covering is women in the workforce, Mr. Mom type situation, which we've seen in a lot of other stuff. I don't know. This seems like a very, and now the other thing I'm thinking about
is that what it is?
No,
because I haven't watched any. I haven't watched any previews
it's something
other
like that.
than like a teaser one.
Yeah.
So is it going to be like Elastigirl goes to work and he has to raise the kids because
something like that?
That's really yawn-inducing.
Yeah, and I think,
that's funny. He doesn't know how to raise his own kids.
Well, no, I think he does kind of. Well, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how they pull it off. It could just be that that's the way they cut the trailer.
I always give you got to give Pixar the benefit of the doubt.
Here's the thing, though, and I think this is the point I've been trying to get to for the last 5 minutes.
Oh God, get to it.
Babbling is I don't know if you can give Pixar the benefit of the doubt anymore with these things that I'm seeing. It's kind of like this is not the Pixar of A Bug's Life, Finding Nemo, and Toy Story 2, just classic. This is the Pixar of The Good Dinosaur, Cars 3.
I like Cars 3.
All right.
I defend it.
All right.
I watched it again recently.
Well, you know why you defend it, Sonia?
I liked it.
You know why you defend it? Because that's a big task. You can spend a lot of time doing it because that's how much it needs defending.
I think it's a perfectly enjoyable movie.
It is a perfectly existing movie.
It is a movie.
So, yeah, I don't know. So, The Incredibles, that's probably going to be my most tepid endorsement of a movie. I'm not excited for a movie that I was insanely excited for 10 years ago, 5 years ago. I don't know what it is. I don't know.
Well, that's a really weird pick then.
That is a very weird pick. What is your next pick?
Speaking of weird picks.
Yeah, speaking of picks I'm not excited about, what's your next pick?
I am excited for this one, but I'm prepared to be mocked for it, which is Life of the Party, starring Melissa McCarthy as a newly divorced woman who goes back to college to get her degree. And it's, of course, the same college that her daughter goes to. I think this movie looks really funny. I like Melissa McCarthy. I think she's awesome. I'm clearly the target audience for this movie. The trailers work on me. My sister and I will go see this. Will my husband see this? No, he will not.
I am very excited for this gender switched remake of Back to School.
It's funny is I told my sister I saw a preview for Life of the Party and we're totally going to go see that. And I told her what it's about and she asked me that. She's like, "Oh, is it just like Back to School?" And I was like, "She's not rich. How dare you?"
No, that's the thing. She's not rich. She's just Hollywood white, which is essentially rich. It's any working class Hollywood person, especially in a comedy, white comedy worker, they all make, when you add up what they're driving plus the houses they live in plus the neighborhoods that they live in, those are $250,000 middle class people. So
I think this movie looks funny. I think it's a good idea. I think I'm a little surprised that this movie's coming out now and not because when did Old School come out?
I think that was about 15 years ago.
Like Old School was pretty similar to this, and
okay.
I can't imagine why it took them so long to think, hey, why don't we do it? But it's someone who actually does go back to school, because he doesn't go back to school. He's just partying. But whatever. I think it looks funny. I super love Spy. Did you see Spy?
I did, and I know a lot of people really liked it. I liked Melissa McCarthy, but I don't know. I was not a huge fan. I didn't love that movie the way a lot of people love that movie.
I saw a preview for Spy and thought that looks perfectly ordinary. I'll totally watch it on FX or something one day. Mm-hmm. And I went to see it anyway. And I was pleasantly surprised and really enjoyed it. And so I'm kind of chasing the dragon with this one, where I'm hoping that it's the same thing, where I see a preview and I was like, oh, that looks mildly entertaining. And I'll be loving it when I go see it. That's my hope.
Cool. All right. My next pick. Actually, my next pick could blow up in my face, but I don't care. I love this idea, and I love...
I saw this on your list, and I don't know anything about this movie, so you're going to have to tell me everything.
It comes out August 10th. It is a movie...
Mamma Mia, here we go again. I'm looking forward.
Directed by Spike Lee.
Oh, okay.
Starring Adam Driver, Topher Grace. It is about a police officer, a Colorado police officer, who infiltrates the KKK with the help. I believe that's what this is about. Hold on. I might be wrong about this. With the help, because I had heard about this about 2 years ago, and it sounded like such a great idea. I think Jordan Peele also worked on this. He infiltrates the KKK with the help of a black undercover or a black officer. So essentially the black officer schools him on what to do to get into the KKK, and is like, this is kind of like a white guy in the KKK under the direction of a black guy to kind of bring down the KKK, which could be cool. It could be, hold on, let me look here.
I think when you're talking about something that is directed by Spike Lee and it looks like he's one of the credited screenwriters, it's going to be interesting. It's going to say something. It's going to have a point of view that, I don't know, we just don't get a lot of those now. Like no offense to your pick for Avengers Infinity War, but
That's right.
It's a lot of Marvel. It's a lot of Baby Boss or Boss Baby, or like this movie's gonna have something to say.
How is Boss Baby not called Baby Boss? Now that we're talking about
I don't even know. I don't even know why I pulled that movie out of my ass.
I think that's one of the things that irritates me most about that movie. It's Boss Baby. It's not, no one says that.
Right.
Sorry. Anyway, continue.
I don't even know why that movie came up. But I think I look forward to seeing a movie like this.
Well,
honestly, like if I had paid more, if I had done a little bit more research, like this movie very easily would have been on my list because that's interesting.
Well, here's the thing: I am very interested about it, and it is produced by Jordan. Jordan Peele is one of the producers. Jason Blum from Blumhouse is one of the producers, who also produced Get Out last year with Jordan Peele. So it's got this kind of new, cool horror drama pedigree on it. Plus, it's got Spike Lee, who I love Spike Lee in his Malcolm X days, but it's been a while since he's done something that I've really gotten thrilled with. He kind of got to the point where I was not watching everything he did. Back in the late 80s and 90s, it was like, oh, Spike Lee movie's out, got to go see it. And now it's kind of like, I saw Invisible Man, that's good. 25th Hour, that was good, but it's, something. Bamboozled, bleh, I
watched about half of She's Gotta Have It, the TV series.
Uh-huh.
I actually quite liked it. It's just I didn't get a chance to finish. I watched like 5 of the 10, I think.
Right. So, yeah. So I'm liking Spike Lee. I'm hoping for him to kind of make a creative comeback, and maybe it could be more along the lines of I have drifted from Spike Lee rather than Spike Lee has drifted from me, or drifted from what I'm interested in. But yeah, I think this sounds like a very interesting, cool movie, and having Spike Lee kind of lean in on it a little bit, I think it would make it. I think it has the potential to be much cooler, much edgier, much less compromising.
Yes,
than it would be in another director's hands,
Mm-hmm.
which I am very interested to see.
Yes.
So, Sonia, what is your next movie?
So my next movie probably could have very easily been on your list, and I know that because you asked me if it was going to be on my list. It is Solo, which is coming out May 25th. This is the Han Solo.
Let me interrupt. This is the story of the Solo Cup Company. This is kind of a quasi-spiritual sequel to The Founder, from a couple years ago. This joke is falling a lot flatter than I was anticipating, so I would like to withdraw at this point and just end it. Sonia, Solo, a Star Wars story. You were saying?
This is the Han Solo origin story that nobody wanted, but I am still going to see because I am a Star Wars completist and I have to see it. I actually think the preview looks really fun, and I will see anything with Donald Glover in it. And once again, I'm going to repeat what I said when we talked about the Han Solo trailer a couple weeks ago. I really wish this was a Lando movie.
Yeah, I hear you.
Here's the deal. Like Han Solo, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I gotta say, Han Solo is like hanging out at the cantina and he meets Luke, and you got the gist of it. You know right. How he ended up there.
Right.
And Lando, he's the mayor of Cloud City.
That's right. Actually,
he's got a story to tell.
You know what? I'm so glad you put it that way, because the story of how a guy hangs out in a bar with his friend and, smuggles and, ferries people around. That's one story. The story of a guy who used to hang out with smugglers, used to hang out with criminals, and is now the mayor of a city. I guess I'm just kind of repeating what you just said.
That's a more interesting story.
Yes, that is interesting. I do want to, but here's the thing for me, because
by the way, where is Lando in all the new movies?
I don't know.
Now I'm very upset.
You know what? Hold on, Sonia Mansfield. I think we might be breaking some news here on Dorking Out. So let's look at this from a producer's point of view.
Yes.
These new movies are about melding nostalgia and a new generation of Star Wars fans.
Yes.
Han is dead.
Yep. Leia
is not going to be in this new movie in any big significant way.
Right.
Luke is dead.
Mm-hmm.
The only big character left standing from the original trilogy that's not Chewbacca is Lando. I am predicting for that last little jolt of nostalgia, and because they need some old guard, or they possibly need some old guard presence in the new movie.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see Lando in Episode 9, especially since Episode 9 is supposed to kind of wrap up the entire Skywalker trilogy. What's more, now that I'm thinking about it, here's another prediction I'm going to make. So
I can't wait.
At the end of The Last Jedi, they put out this call. Hey, friends of the rebellion, we really need your help. Now's the time.
Yep.
They essentially wrote in a little excuse for Lando to come screaming to the rescue.
Lando. That's what I want.
Here is the last thing I'm going to say about Solo.
Okay.
I agree with you. I am not interested in a Han Solo origin story. I don't know if that's exactly what we're getting, though. And
this one, it looks like a heist movie.
Well,
I'm sure it'll be very fun.
And that's why I'm more and more excited about it, because it looks like they're doing the thing that Marvel's doing with their movies, and that I think correctly made, or, interestingly made prequels do, which is we're not just going to go back and fill in blanks.
Right.
We're going to tell a completely different story that happens before the other one, that has mostly new characters. It's got some characters that but it's mainly centered around these other characters, or they play a huge role. So I'm actually, the more I hear about this movie, the more I see, the more interested I am, because it looks like it's not just, this is how Han and Chewie met and they're friends. It's, that I'm sure that happened somewhere.
This is how Han and Chewie met. And then they went and they bought the 3D chess set that's in the Millennium Falcon with all the creatures. And then it just fills in every single little thing for you.
If they do that, I will be very unhappy. But if this is essentially like an Ocean's 11, and Han is just one of the guys along on the heist,
right?
You know what I would do? Here's what I would do. I think this would be a lot of fun.
Make this all about Lando.
No.
That's what I would do.
Well, okay, maybe. Here's what I would do. I would make this kind of an Ocean's 11.
Mm-hmm.
And Han would not be the Brad Pitt. He would not be the George Clooney. He would be the Matt Damon. Which is kind of the young kid. He's kind of competent, but he's kind of a boob. He's kind of full of himself, but he also is, at the right moment, really, on the ball. So right. It would be, and so he's kind of half blowhard, half screw up, which is what we love about Han the most anyway. That's what I would do. I would have Lando and whoever Woody Harrelson's character is. I would have them be the Clooney Pitt in this Ocean's 11 type thing, and have Han be the kind of up-and-comer, but who's still learning and who's still kind of a screw up. That's what I would do.
We've talked about this a lot. Two things. there are a million stories they could tell in the Star Wars galaxy, and they keep coming back to like the same like characters over and over. That's a bummer. 2, how do you tell an interesting story about someone where we already know how it ends?
You don't tell it about them. You tell it about their friends.
What is the character arc for the Han in this movie? Like, it seems like he's kind of a cocky guy at the beginning, and he's probably going to be a cocky guy at the end because he's pretty cocky.
Right.
In Star Wars.
You know, that's what I'm wondering.
I haven't seen the movie. I don't know. Maybe he's not a cocky guy at the beginning. I'm just going by what I've seen in the trailers. Well, I am interested to see what happens.
And there is that one scene or that one exchange in one of the trailers that, you know, Aldrich Ehrenreich, or what's his name? Well, you know, whoever's the guy.
The guy.
You know, the guy that's playing it. There's been a lot of rumors that he's not a very good actor, or at least particularly on this movie, he's not a very good actor, and blah, 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 blah. Who knows? But there is an exchange in this between him and Emily Clark's character, where he kind of puts on this persona, or he puts on this kind of I'm a cocky guy, and then there's a flicker of, can she see through me? He kind of does this little gulp thing, where it's like he's trying on being a cocky guy and seeing, and he's kind of watching her. It's all done without. I wish I could remember, you know, the actual thing. It's all done with kind of pretty meaningless dialogue.
Okay,
but if the whole movie is like that, one, I think that would be a fantastic way to go. Really interesting, and 2. If he really is that subtle and controlled throughout this movie, I'm wondering what the hell all these rumors were about anyway. So
that was one of my picks. What is your next pick?
My next pick is a very shallow pick, but I don't care.
Is it Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again?
No. It is Mission Impossible Fallout.
This movie was totally on my list until I saw it was on your list.
It was. Now, because we've talked about Tom Cruise a lot back and forth on this. We've talked about this series somewhat, and there's just something about the Mission Impossible movies since number 3 where they're just really competently made, really fun, very popcorny, very, I don't want to say non-threatening, but very...
They are very...
non-challenging. It's just they're really fun movies, and that's
they're
it.
Super fun. I saw the first one, and I didn't like the first one.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if I saw the second one.
Yeah.
And I went to which one is the new one coming out? Mission Impossible Fallout. That's 7, right?
6, I think.
Is it? Okay.
I think it's 6.
I went to see something else, and there was a preview for Rogue Nation. Is that
right?
Okay. And I was like, that looks really fun. I don't like these movies, but I might go see that one. And I saw it, and I was like, holy shit, that was awesome. And then I went home and watched like Ghost Protocol, and I was like, this one was awesome too. And then I saw there was a new one coming out, and I was like, I'm gonna see that. I love Mission Impossible movies.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. And I gotta say, my favorite, even though there's parts of Ghost Protocol and parts of Rogue Nation that I really like, my favorite is just Mission Impossible 3, where they kind of rebooted this or reworked the series.
People love the third one. Is that the one with Philip Seymour Hoffman?
It's the one with Philip Seymour Hoffman, okay. and it tells you, for me, it tells you everything that's important about the reconceived Mission Impossible movies. In that, they're chasing after this thing called the Rabbit's Foot that they never explain. They never tell you what it does. MacGuffin. It literally, it's the excuse for the chase, and they pay so little attention to it, and it is so unimportant in the scheme of the movie that they never even explain what it is. And that's kind of like, so they're kind of acknowledging this is all these movies are. They're fun chases, so let's go. And I do have to admire a series of movies, or people making a movie that they know exactly what target they're trying to hit. They work very hard to competently hit that target, and it's a hell of a lot of fun. And there is something,
and there's
these
some
movies.
real stunts in there too. It's not.
Oh yeah.
It's not 100% CGI where you're like, well, that looks like a video game.
Right.
There's some real stuff going on there, and that's fun to watch.
And it is for me fun to watch Tom Cruise enter his Harrison Ford phase, where he's they've built up Ethan Hunt in this series of movies as this kind of super competent James Bond type person, but he gets really beaten around, and he really kind of makes it out by the skin of his teeth, or makes it out by chance or accident. And you can see Tom Cruise starting to let down the guard of, I've got to be the biggest badass in the room all the time.
Right.
Even though the character's portrayed that way, we can kind of see him wheezing. We can kind of see him getting, kicked around. We can kind of see him screw up, which I think is a lot of fun to watch. And he's at the point in his career where he's starting to poke a little bit more fun at himself, which I think makes him twice as interesting.
Yes.
So yeah, I am loving these movies, but it's kind of like, well, what do you love about them? I don't know. They're fun.
Yeah.
End of
there's
story.
nothing wrong with that.
Right. So that's it. So what is your final movie?
It's not my final movie. This will be my fourth movie.
It's not your final movie? Oh, I'm sorry. My mistake. What's your fourth movie?
How dare you? My fourth movie is...
Well, I'll tell you how I dare. I wasn't paying attention. And that's how
Oh, Sonia, when did you get here?
I was in the middle of talking, and you showed up.
My next pick is Ocean's 8.
Speaking of prequels.
I think this was a movie that they probably made just for me. It's got all kinds of people in it that I love. Sandra Bullock, Cate Blanchett. I said Sandra Bullock.
Sandra Bullock, Cate Blanchett. That's it.
And that's it. No, like Sarah Paulson, Mindy Kaling. Like, there's a lot of awesome people in this movie, and I'm really excited for it. I think it looks super fun. I think it just looks cool. I love the first Ocean's 11. I think it's really, really fun. I am on board for this one. It's another one that I haven't read a lot about because I don't want to know that much about the heist, even though I don't know if the heist is really the thing that drives this movie. Although I think it's very cool that they're going to rob the Met Gala. They're going to steal a necklace off Anne Hathaway, I guess, is what the gist of it.
That's my understanding.
But I don't know. Do you think the heist matters?
Yes. Because it's a heist movie. So I think it does play into it something. But it is the excuse to get these people all together and going and doing their stuff.
I think it's really interesting they're going to rob the Met Gala, and I don't know a lot about the Met Gala. I just know that people dress really ridiculous, and I did read that they got Anna Wintour to work on the movie so that it's really accurate what the Met Gala is like inside. So I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think this is a pretty smart move for this kind of thing. I'm wondering, the Met, I've heard about the Met Gala a lot, but it's always kind of super rich people doing something, I guess.
Oh yeah, sure.
Watching some fashion stuff, I guess. And it's kind of all right, if I am very interested in a movie centered around taking that down a couple of pegs.
Yes.
But
I do wonder if this movie needed to be tied to Oceans at all.
I don't know.
I
really like that.
George Clooney's her brother, and they're both criminals, and I don't know if it really needed it.
Well, then it would have just been some other heist movie with a bunch of chicks.
And that would be fine with me. I totally see it.
It would be fine, but it's kind of like if you're trying to have a Ocean's connected movie.
Tying it to Ocean's gives it like you kind of have a style that you expect, I guess.
Right.
Whereas if it wasn't tied to that, you would see it and then you'd be like, "Oh my God, it's just like Ocean's 11."
Right. So
I guess it needs it, but
yeah.
I remember reading about it when they first announced it, and I was like, "Well, I'll totally see that because I love everybody who's in it." But I couldn't help but wonder if it really needed that connection. But
yeah,
I'm still totally going to see it, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Now, this is, we talk about a lot on this show, the maintenance of big pieces of intellectual property. And, this seems like a fun way to keep a series like I like the Ocean's movies. I like that level
very
of movie.
Entertaining.
And I think this is kind of how they should be continuing some of this stuff, because this is not Ocean's 14. This is not, a lot of movie series that go on and on and on
right.
do get ridiculous and become parodies of themselves. And I think that's, talking about Star Wars and talking about Marvel is, I think the way that those series have been able to continue and remain relevant and interesting is rather than just kind of trudge on one movie after another movie after another movie that kind of go in this linear line until it becomes exhausted. See several eras of the James Bond movie make the same mistake over and over and over. Is, so we're going to make these 3 movies in this line, and then we're going to kind of veer off and go over here with the sister, or like with the Star Wars movies, we're going to make the main movies, and then we're going to veer off and do these Star Wars stories that go off in all these little different directions to kind of do interesting things, but they're connected and whatever. I don't know. I just think for me, this is the kind of sequel making that I have a lot easier time with.
Sure.
So I'm just interested, and it's it's the Ocean movies. They're frivolous. They're fun.
They are fun. What is your last pick?
My last pick is actually, I think it was on my list when we were talking about most anticipated stories of 2018. Mm-hmm. It is Brian Henson's movie, The Happytime Murders. When a puppet cast of a 1980s children's TV show begins to get murdered one by one, a disgraced LAPD detective turned private eye takes on the case. This stars Elizabeth Banks, Melissa McCarthy, Joel McHale, Maya Rudolph, and this is essentially Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yes.
But with Muppets. And yeah. I am very excited for this movie. There's something about Muppets. Actually, we talked about this, and I made a lot of awful puppet rapist jokes, and referred to.
I don't remember that, but thanks for refreshing my memory.
And referred to a series on YouTube, 10 years old, that I thought was hilarious, in a very dark and bitter way. So yeah, that's what this is. This movie, I've been hearing about it for 10 years. Yeah. This I believe this screenplay was on the blacklist. I could be wrong about that. It's been bouncing around for years and years and years. It's finally shot. It's finally coming out. I am very excited for it. So
I'm excited for this one too. I am a really big fan of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I think it's a movie that gets better the more you watch it. I'm really excited for this one. I know I've said that about pretty much every movie we've talked about, but I really am.
I do have to say something though. I just realized I'm nervous about. We have not seen any previews for this movie. It's coming out in August, and we've seen nothing.
That's true.
All right.
Well, maybe they're waiting until like Marvel stuff dies down.
So, okay, so they can't do it in May. So that's going to be all Infinity War. Then in June, it's all the build up to Ant-Man. Then July, it's Ant-Man.
But is there really going to be a big build up to Ant-Man?
Yes, this is the era we live in, Sonia. This is.
I didn't even see the first one. Is Ant-Man really a big deal?
It's not a big deal, but it's it's another big Marvel movie. I can't remember the last Marvel movie that was not a big deal when it came out. I guess that's what I'm saying.
I guess I thought Ant-Man was the last one that came out that wasn't a big deal.
All right, you could be right. I could be totally in the tank.
I know that people love Ant-Man, and I feel bad. I don't want to make fun of it.
You know what it is?
I'm sure, because you've actually told me that I would really love Ant-Man.
Here's the thing.
I just still haven't watched it yet.
Ant-Man is kind of, not really, but kind of the Ocean's 11 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is, it's this kind of fun, lighthearted, trifling heist movie.
I think it just came out at a time where, like, I didn't get a chance to see it, and then it hasn't become available in any way, like, free streaming. And by free, I mean stuff I'm already paying for, like Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime or HBO. Like, it's always to buy or rent. And I was like, well, I don't want to pay for it because I'm already paying for all these services. So I haven't watched it. Maybe it'll happen for me.
Yeah, it's not, I don't mean to build it up like it's the, second coming of The Dark Knight or something. But I'm trying to think of a comparable movie. But no, it's good. It's not great. It's just fun. It's at that Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor Ragnarok. I wouldn't say it's as good as those, but it's kind of like all it wants to do is entertain you. Okay. It's not asking big questions about heroism. It's not doing any of the things that the Iron Man or the Captain America movies are doing. It's just, this is going to be a fun lark. He gets shrunk down real small. It's fun.
Okay. All right. I'll put it on the list. I'll try to make it happen.
What is your last?
My last pick is a documentary called Won't You Be My Neighbor, which is the documentary about Mr. Rogers. It's directed by Morgan Neville, who did 20 Feet From Stardom. Did you ever see that?
I didn't, but I've heard a lot of stuff about it.
It's so good. And I've seen the trailers for Won't You Be My Neighbor in front of a few movies, and I know it's going to make me cry really hard.
Right.
The trailers have got me pretty choked up. My husband just today asked me when this movie was coming out because he wants to see it really bad. I watched Mr. Rogers a lot when I was a kid. My mom has told stories about how I actually loved Mr. Rogers. And then when they would go to the puppets, I became less interested and would like wander off. And then when Mr. Rogers came back, I would come back. Like, I loved Mr. Rogers.
You know what?
And we watch a lot of Daniel Tiger in this house with my son, who's 6. And Daniel Tiger, I don't know if you know, is like a spinoff of Mr. Rogers.
Oh, wow. And, hold on. Keep going.
And it's just, he's just so decent and nice. And just seeing the previews where they talk about like how he talks to children and the things he did on the show that were so groundbreaking at the time. He didn't talk down to kids. They talk about how, like, when I think JFK was assassinated, he did like an episode about that, and he does one about divorce, and
I think it was RFK, but yes.
Okay, thank you. He did stuff about race and about children with disabilities and just all these things. I mean, Sesame Street does these things too, but I just think he's such a good man. And they're, of course, making a movie about him. And of course, Tom Hanks is playing him because who else
That's right.
can play Mr. Rogers? Only Tom Hanks.
What's actually, what is that? What is the name of that movie?
I don't know. They're probably just calling it Mr. Rogers, right?
I don't know.
I'll look it up. Have you seen previews for?
I've seen previews, and actually, this was going to be on my list.
It's called "Are You My Friend?" You Are My Friend.
Right. I was gonna. This is one of the movies, and usually with these kinds of lists, for some reason I lean against putting on documentaries, just because what documentaries do and what live action fictional movies do are so different that connecting them is kind of difficult. But I am very interested, and it's funny that you should say that, because I used to watch Mr. Rogers. And you're 100% right. The puppets kind of sucked, and I think I was like a Sesame Street kid, and I loved Kermit and all that kind of stuff. And I think what it might be, for me at least, Mr. Rogers just suffered from, well, they're not the Muppets, so who gives a shit? These are like
I don't even think it was that. I think it's just
it was definitely that for me.
I think I just liked him so much.
Yeah.
That for some reason I wasn't as interested in them, only him.
Right.
And I just think with like everything that's going on in the world, I wish we had more Mr. Rogers in the world.
Yes. All right.
And I think they even say that in the preview, like in a divisive time, like we need a Mr. Rogers.
Holy
and I for
smokes.
Sure do.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
I did want to say, I wanted to do like a couple of like there's a documentary coming out about Whitney Houston. I will totally see that. And I didn't know if this was going to be on your list, but I thought you would want to know about it just in case. The movie called Shock and Awe.
Okay, keep going. I just saw that you had this on here.
Yeah. It is a movie with Woody Harrelson and James Marsden. It's directed by Rob Reiner, and it's about like some journalists who work for the Night Ritter newspapers that, really like worked on the stories about how there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq.
Here's the thing. This could be very interesting.
We love journalism movies. We
do.
love newspaper movies, so I wanted to make sure to put it on this list just because I wanted you to know that this was coming out in July.
I appreciate it. I am not sure how I feel about this because Rob Reiner, I don't know. I was very excited for his LBJ movie, and it was just kind of paint by the numbers, and I don't know. I have a feeling that
worried it's too preachy.
Yeah, he's gotten to a stage in his career, and I think a lot of Hollywood people like this. There were all those anti-Iraq war movies that came out in like 2007, 2008. Like there was one with Tom Cruise, and where it was just kind of like you can feel the politics and the urgency of the filmmakers. You can feel it on their sleeves, and it's just, the fact that this is a journalism movie makes me very interested and very hopeful, and I think this might be an interesting way to tell this story without it being, I don't want to say, while it can be like authentically preachy, like it can be, you would expect reporters that are teasing through all these questions and working out all these questions, it would be preachy because they would be finding out stuff, and it's a natural way for them to have conversations about it, I guess. So yeah, I did not know this. And here's the other thing that makes me a little nervous about it. I had not heard one word about this movie. It's coming out in 2 months, and it's radio silence. I don't even know. Is there a preview that's come out for this movie?
I have not seen a preview. I just read about it and was like, oh, that will go on my mental list.
Yeah, it's on my list, and I will definitely see it. But I'm looking on the Internet Movie Database right now. It's also an hour and a half.
Yes!
And
like every movie should be.
Okay, Sonia, I want you to be honest with me.
Yes.
Did you go into the Internet Movie Database, list all the movies that are coming out in the next 3 months, and then sort them by runtime?
No, I did not.
Is that how you made your list?
That's how I decide. Why did you look them all up and they're all 90 minutes?
No, I just happen to be I'm looking them all up on the Internet Movie Database, and I just like, oh, look at this. And 90. The ones that we've talked about.
I think what that shows is I have excellent taste, and so do these people making these movies, because they know it doesn't need to be longer than that. That's what I think.
All right.
Any movie that's longer than our podcast, because our podcasts are too long, they're 90 minutes.
Jesus. That's right.
Instead of seeing a movie like that, you should listen to our podcast.
That's right. And it'll feel like it's as long as
yes. Get your popcorn and you'll feel like you spent $15. Right.
Yes, get your popcorn, sit down, listen, fall asleep, wake up, we'll still be here. Talking. So speaking of which,
so fun.
Sonia Mansfield, is there anything else that you would like to say about the summer movies of 2018?
I think I've said enough, so I'll just say goodbye.
Bye!